Don't go inside yet. Margaret grabbed my arm the moment I stepped out of my car, her grip firmer than I'd ever felt from a woman who spent her days organizing spreadsheets and answering emails. There's something you need to see first, and Nathan cannot know you've seen it. I stood in the parking lot of the Harborview Inn, still holding my car keys, dressed in the pearl gray suit I'd spent 3 weeks choosing. My son was inside that building, 40 minutes away from walking down the aisle, and Margaret Howell, who had worked as my late husband's personal assistant for 18 years, was looking at me like the world was on fire. Something felt wrong. Not the ordinary nervousness a mother feels watching her son get married. This was different, a cold, low dread, like the feeling I'd had the morning the hospital called about my husband. That specific weight. The kind your body recognizes before your mind catches up. Margaret. I kept my voice steady. What's going on? She didn't answer right away. She glanced toward the hotel entrance, then back to me, and I noticed her eyes were red. She'd been crying before I arrived. 18 years, she said quietly. Your husband trusted me with everything. His accounts, his files, his private correspondence. He told me once that if anything ever happened to him, I should look after you and Nathan the way he would have. She paused. I've been carrying something for 3 weeks, and I almost didn't say anything because I thought I must be wrong. I kept telling myself I was wrong, but I'm not wrong, and I can't let you walk into that building without knowing. I thought about my husband then. Robert. Gone 2 years now. A sudden cardiac event on a Tuesday afternoon. Nathan had been devastated. We both had. And then Celeste came into Nathan's life 6 months later. Polished, warm, full of the right words, and Nathan started smiling again in a way I hadn't seen since his father's funeral. I'd been grateful. I'd told myself to be grateful. Show me, I said. Margaret pulled out her phone. The photograph was taken from a distance. A residential street, mid-morning light. A white craftsman house with a red door. Celeste stood on the porch in ordinary clothes. Jeans, a loose sweater. Nothing like the composed woman who always appeared at our dinner table in carefully chosen outfits. Beside her stood a man I didn't recognize. Dark hair, early 40s, tired face, the look of someone who hadn't slept properly in months. And between them, holding both their hands, was a little girl. Maybe 4 years old. Blonde pigtails. A pink backpack. I stared at the image. Who is that? I asked. The man's name is Owen Monroe. Margaret's voice was careful, measured. The house is registered to him. He and Celeste have the same last name on the property records. She swiped to the next photo. A close-up of a mailbox. Monroe. I found this 3 weeks ago when I was helping Nathan set up the joint account. Celeste submitted her identification documents, and I noticed something was slightly off about the formatting on her birth certificate. It looked real. It was real. But I started digging. She swiped again. A document. A marriage certificate. Owen Monroe and Celeste Monroe. Nate Crawford. Married 5 years ago in Savannah, Georgia. The parking lot felt like it tilted. She never divorced him, Margaret said. I looked up from the phone. A car pulled into the lot beside us. 2 women in formal dresses laughing about something. Guests arriving. Unaware. Happy. How confident are you, I asked. Happy, how confident are you? I asked, because Robert had always taught me to ask that question before reacting. How confident are you in what you're telling me? Completely, Margaret said. I have the original marriage record. I have property records showing they're co-owners of that house. I have a photograph from her social media, deleted now, but I found it archived, of the 3 of them at Christmas 2 years ago. Nathan had already been dating her for 6 months by then. Nathan had been dating her while she was living a second life with a husband and a daughter. I pressed my hand flat against the roof of my car. Breathed. Counted the way my therapist had taught me after Robert died. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Where is she right now, I asked. Still at the bridal suite, as far as the hotel knows? Margaret hesitated. But this morning, before I came here, I drove past Owen Monroe's house. Her car was there. She left about 40 minutes ago. She paused. Ruth. She went to see him this morning, on her wedding day. I followed her. I looked at Margaret carefully. This woman who had organized Robert's entire professional life without a single error. Who had sent flowers to the hospital when I had my gallbladder out. Who had, without being asked, put together a binder of Robert's business records so that Nathan and I could continue running the property management company after he was gone. Take me there, I said. We left my car in the hotel lot. Margaret drove. I sat in the passenger seat watching familiar streets give way to a quieter neighborhood I'd never had a reason to visit before. The houses here were modest and well-kept, yards with bikes and garden hoses and basketball hoops. The kind of street where people knew their neighbors' names. Margaret slowed and pointed. That one, red door. We parked half a block away. I don't know what I expected to feel. Rage, maybe, or the cold clarity of confirmed suspicion. What I actually felt was grief. For Nathan. For the version of his future that was about to be dismantled. She's already gone, Margaret said. But he's still there. I saw movement through the window. I sat for a moment. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Wait here, I said. I walked to the red door and knocked. He answered in 30 seconds. Owen Monroe in person looked exactly like the photographs. Exhausted, hollowed out, the face of a man who had been losing a long battle with something he couldn't quite name. When he saw me, confusion crossed his features. Can I help you? My name is Ruth Calloway, I said. My son's name is Nathan Calloway. I believe you know why I'm here. The color left his face so quickly it was almost clinical. He didn't stop me from stepping inside. The living room was small and warm. A child's drawings covered the refrigerator door. Visible through the kitchen archway, crayon sons, a family of 3 stick figures, the word Emma in large, uneven letters across the top of one. Owen sat down heavily on the couch without being invited to. I remained standing. I saw a photograph, I told him. I have a copy of your marriage certificate. I know she never filed for divorce. I kept Robert's voice in my head. Direct, calm. Don't perform anger when information is what you need. I need you to tell me everything. And I need you to do it right now because my son is 40 minutes away from making a catastrophic mistake. Owen covered his face with his hands. When he lowered them, his eyes were wet. I told her not to do this, he said. I told her months ago when she started talking about Nathan, about his family's company, about what a marriage into the Calloway name would mean for us. He exhaled. I told her it was wrong. But you didn't stop her. He was quiet for a long moment. We owe a man named Garrett Sims $240,000, medical bills from when Emma was born. She came 6 weeks early. The NICU alone was over $100,000, and then I made some investments that didn't work out. We were drowning. Garrett is in a bank. He doesn't do payment plans. He looked at his hands. He told us if we didn't have the money by the end of the year, he'd take Emma. Have her placed in a home, he said, through Channies he had. I don't know if he could actually do it. I just know I believed him. The little girl's drawings on the refrigerator. Emma, 4 years old with blonde pigtails. I understood something then that I hadn't expected to understand. The shape of desperation when it belongs to a parent. I wasn't absolved by understanding it. But I understood it. She targeted Nathan specifically, Owen continued. She researched your family for months. The property company, your assets, the real estate portfolio. She figured if she could get access to a joint account after the wedding, transfer enough to pay Garrett and disappear, she could start over. She said 1 year of marriage, a quiet divorce, and we'd be free. He swallowed. I don't think she planned on any of it feeling real. But I also don't think she stopped it when it started to. Do you have documentation? I said. Marriage certificate? Anything that proves what you've told me? He nodded slowly. He disappeared into the bedroom. I stood in the living room listening to the distant sound of a child's television show coming from somewhere down the hall, a cartoon voice singing a cheerful song, completely indifferent to everything happening 20 feet away. Owen came back with a folder. Thicker than I expected. He spread the contents on the coffee table the way a man does, who has been rehearsing this moment in his head for a while, hoping it would never come, and preparing for it anyway. The marriage certificate, the original. Photographs spanning 5 years. Birthdays, holidays, Emma in a hospital bassinet, days old, Celeste's face in those early pictures open and unguarded in a way I had never once seen in the woman sitting at my dinner table. Bank statements. Text messages printed out, Celeste to an unidentified contact. The Calloway portfolio is worth at minimum $4 million. 6 months and we're out. Another, he's so trusting. Honestly, it makes this harder, but I can't stop now. That last one I read twice. She said it makes this harder, I said, half to myself. Owen nodded. I think she cares about him more than she meant to, but she's still going through with it. I gathered the documents. My hands were not shaking. I had Robert to thank for that, for all those years of watching him absorb bad news without flinching, without performing. Just absorbing it and deciding what to do next. Bring Emma to the Harborview Inn, I said. 1 hour. Park in the back lot and wait. Don't come inside until I contact you. You and Emma will be safe. I'm going to make a call before I arrive. I met his eyes. Garrett Sims. I want his full name and whatever contact information you have. Owen blinked. Why? Because my husband taught me that when you solve a problem, you solve the whole problem. I walked back to Margaret's car. She had been watching from a distance, and when I got in, she saw my face and said nothing, just started the engine. On the drive back, I called a man named Arthur Beckley who had been Robert's attorney for 22 years, and who owed my husband a debt of the personal variety that had never been called in. I told him what I needed. He was quiet for exactly 10 seconds. Then he said, "Give me the name." I gave him Garrett Sims. "Consider it handled," Arthur said. I believed him. Some things you simply believe. The Harborview Inn looked exactly as it had when I'd left it. Same cars in the lot, same guests arriving in formal wear, same blue October sky overhead. Everything beautiful on the outside. I walked through the lobby like a woman who had not just spent the last 40 minutes dismantling her son's future in order to save it. The ceremony wasn't for another 25 minutes. I found Nathan in a small room off the main corridor that the hotel set aside for grooms. He was standing at the mirror in his suit, turning his collar up and back down, the way he'd fidgeted before every important moment since he was 7 years old. "Mom." He turned when he heard me, and his whole face softened. "You look beautiful." "So do you," I said, and I meant it. My son was 34 years old, broad-shouldered, with Robert's jaw and my eyes, and he looked so much like the man I'd loved that it still caught me off guard sometimes. He looked happy, genuinely, terrifyingly happy. I walked to him. I straightened his collar with both hands, slowly, the way I'd done before his graduation, before his first real job interview, before every moment that mattered. "Nathan," I said carefully, "I want you to know that everything I do comes from loving you. Everything. Even when it doesn't feel that way." He tilted his head. "Mom, you're being weird. Are you crying? Not yet." I stepped back and looked at him. "You look exactly like your father on our wedding day." Something moved across his face. The good kind of grief. The kind that lives alongside love rather than replacing it. "Yeah? He'd be so proud of you." I touched his face briefly. "I'll see you out there." I found my seat in the front row of the ceremony room. Ivory chairs arranged in perfect rows. Late afternoon light coming through tall windows. White flowers everywhere. Margaret sat 2 rows back. I caught her eye. She gave me the smallest nod. I texted Owen. "We're starting. Come to the back entrance. Wait for my signal." His reply came in under a minute. "We're here." The processional music started. The room rose. I rose with them. Celeste appeared at the back of the room. She was breathtaking. An ivory gown fitted to perfection. Hair swept up with small white flowers, the composed elegance she wore like armor. She moved down the aisle with the measured grace of someone who had practiced this. Her smile was radiant. The guests leaned toward her in the way people do when beauty enters a room. I watched her and I thought about the text message. "He's so trusting. It makes this harder." I thought about Emma, about a 4-year-old in the car with Owen right now, probably asking where they were going, probably clutching something small and soft the way children do. I thought about Nathan's face when I told him he looked like his father. Nathan stood at the altar. His eyes found Celeste the moment she appeared, and what I saw on his face was devastating in its purity. He pressed one hand against his chest. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 2 years, like she was air. The officiant's voice filled the room, the words about love and commitment, and the sacred nature of a promise made in front of witnesses. The room was warm and still. I sat in the front row with my hands folded in my lap, patient, waiting. "If anyone here knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage." I stood. The sound of it, fabric shifting, the quiet creak of my chair, seemed to expand in the silence. Every head turned. "I do." My voice was clear. "I'm sorry to do this. I am deeply sorry. But this ceremony cannot continue." The room erupted, not loudly, more like a wave that moved through the guests, a collective intake of breath that became urgent whispers. Nathan spun toward me. His face went from shock to something close to horror. "Mom." His voice was barely above a whisper. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" I held his gaze. "I love you more than anything on this earth. Please trust me for the next few minutes." Celeste had gone very still. Her bouquet was steady in her hands, but her shoulders had pulled in slightly, the first crack in the composure. "Ruth." Her voice was warm, controlled, exactly calibrated. Whatever is wrong, we can talk about this privately. This isn't the moment. The woman standing at this altar, I said, addressing the room but looking at my son, is legally married to another man. She has been for 5 years. The whispers became voices. Chairs shifted. Nathan took a step backward. That's not true. Celeste's warmth evaporated. That is not true. Nathan, she's never accepted us. She's been looking for a reason. His name is Owen Monroe. I opened my purse and removed the folder. They share a house on Clover Street. Their names are both on the deed. This is their original marriage certificate. I held it up. And they have a daughter together. She's 4 years old. Her name is Emma. The name landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. Nathan's face had gone completely blank, the expression of a man whose mind is refusing to process what his ears are receiving. Nathan! Celeste moved toward him. Nathan, please listen to me. I can explain. Don't. He didn't step back. He didn't step forward. He just stopped. Don't say my name right now. From the back of the room came the sound of a door opening. I had texted Owen 2 minutes before. He walked down the center aisle slowly, and in his arms, half asleep against his shoulder, was a small blonde girl in a pink dress. Emma Monroe, 4 years old, who had apparently been napping in the back of her father's car and woke up disoriented. She lifted her head when the lights hit her. She looked around the room with wide, blinking eyes. She saw the flowers. She saw the candles. She saw the woman in the white dress at the front. Her face broke into the open, uncomplicated delight of a child who sees her mother. Mommy. The word landed in the silence like something physical. Someone in the third row made a sound that was not quite crying. The officiant took a step back. Nathan turned slowly toward the aisle, toward Owen and the little girl who had just said that word, and I watched my son's face through something I will never be able to fully describe. It was the look of a man watching the last version of a story he'd believed collapse all at once. Celeste made a sound, not words, just a sound, and for the first time since I'd known her, the mask was entirely gone. What was underneath it was not the calculating coldness I'd expected. It was something more complicated and more terrible. A woman who had started something she couldn't finish, who had gone too far to stop, who might have genuinely loved my son in spite of everything she was doing to him. Celeste. My voice was quieter now. He deserves the truth. Whatever else you've done, give him that. Owen had stopped halfway down the aisle. He was holding Emma, whose face had shifted from joy to confusion at the silence. Daddy, why is Mommy not coming? Owen pressed his lips together. It's okay, sweet girl. Nathan turned to me. His voice was careful in the way a person is careful when they're afraid that speaking normally will break something. How long have you known? Since this morning, I said honestly. Margaret found the documents 3 weeks ago and confirmed everything today. 3 weeks. He wasn't angry. Not yet. Margaret knew for 3 weeks. She was protecting you the same way she always has. The same way your father asked her to. Nathan flinched at that. Robert's name in that context. I saw him close his eyes briefly. He turned back to Celeste. She hadn't moved. The bouquet was still in her hands, trembling slightly now. Tell me why, Nathan said. His voice was very quiet. Not the story about the money, not whatever explanation you've prepared. Just tell me, was any of it real? Any part of it? Celeste's eyes filled. Nathan, because I need to know, he said. Whether I was a person to you or a transaction. I need to know that before I know anything else. The room was absolutely silent. Celeste opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and then she looked down at the flowers in her hands and she didn't answer. Not because she had no answer, I think, but because whatever the true answer was, she couldn't bring herself to give it to him in front of everyone who'd come to watch him get married. That silence told him everything. Nathan turned away. He pressed his hand over his mouth for a moment. Then he dropped it and stood straight, shoulders back, and he looked exactly like his father. 2 officers arrived quietly through a side entrance. Margaret had made that call before we'd even left Owen's house. They moved through the room with the practiced calm of people accustomed to managing difficult situations in formal venues. The lead officer addressed Celeste by her full legal name, Celeste Monroe. The charge he named was marriage fraud and bigamy. She didn't fight it. When they guided her hands behind her back, the only thing she said was Nathan's name. Once, just that. He didn't turn around. Emma, still in Owen's arms, watched the officers with wide eyes. Daddy, where are they taking Mommy? She has to go talk to some people, sweetheart. Owen's voice broke on the last word, but held. It's going to be okay. I went to Nathan. He was standing at the edge of the altar looking at nothing in particular. I stood beside him and didn't say anything. Because Robert had taught me that some moments don't need words, they just need a person to stand close. After a while, Nathan said, "I should have listened to you." "No," I said. "You should have listened to you." "No," I said. "You should never apologize for loving someone. You warned me." Not directly, but I saw it on your face every time she came to the house. That look you had. I told myself you were just overprotective. I told myself the same thing, I said. For 2 years, I told myself I was wrong to feel it. Mothers second-guess themselves because we don't want to be the reason our children are unhappy. I turned to look at him. I almost stayed quiet, Nathan. I almost convinced myself it wasn't my place, and then I thought about your father, about what he would have done. Nathan was quiet for a moment. He would have said something immediately. He would have said something the first night she came to dinner. I almost laughed. He was better at this than I am. Nathan did laugh then. Briefly? Painfully. Yeah, he was. The guests were beginning to leave, quietly, carefully, the way people leave a place where something is broken. Some of them touched Nathan's shoulder as they passed. Some of them said nothing. Margaret came and stood beside me, and I reached over and squeezed her hand without looking at her. Nathan sat down in the front row. I sat beside him. "What do I do now?" he asked. "You go home," I said. "You go home," I said. "You go home," I said. "You call Dr. Ashworth on Monday. You let the people who love you be close. And you don't rush anything." He leaned his head back. "She had a kid, Mom. A little girl who doesn't understand what's happening." "I know. That little girl didn't do anything wrong." I looked at him. My son, who in the middle of his own devastation was thinking about a 4-year-old in a pink dress. Robert's son, through and through. "No," I said. "She didn't. Which is why I'm going to make sure she and her father have proper legal representation. Owen Monroe made terrible choices, but Emma Monroe is completely innocent." I paused. "The man who was threatening them. Garrett Sims. Arthur is handling that." Nathan turned his head toward me slowly. "You already called Arthur?" "In the car on the way back from Owen's house." He stared at me. "Mom, you've been doing all of this. Your father asked me once what I would do if he wasn't around to protect us." I told him I didn't know. I think I know now. I held his gaze. I did exactly what he would have done. Nathan reached over and took my hand. We sat in the empty ceremony room. Afternoon light shifting through the windows, flowers going slightly soft at the edges, the way cut flowers do when the day grows long. Mother and son in a room meant for a beginning, sitting with the end of something and the beginning of something else neither of us could name yet. "Let's go home," he finally said. "Yes," I said. "Let's go home." 4 months later, the office felt like itself again. Nathan's desk was piled with project files for a development contract we just won, the largest since Robert's time. He moved through the building with the particular energy of someone who has come through something hard and found themselves still standing. He looked better, not healed. I don't think that kind of thing heals cleanly, but lighter. He'd started running again in the mornings. He called me on Sundays. He'd gone back to the Thursday evening dinners Robert and I had always held. Casual, open table, whoever wanted to come. Margaret had accepted the title of Director of Operations, which she'd deserved for a decade. She'd declined the raise twice before I stopped giving her the option. Celeste pled guilty to marriage fraud and bigamy. 4 years, with the possibility of early release. I didn't go to the sentencing. Nathan did, briefly, and he told me afterward that she looked at him once across the courtroom and then looked away, and he understood that was the closest she could come to an apology. Owen Monroe attended with Emma. When the sentence was read, he stood very still. On the way out, he stopped beside Nathan in the hallway. The two men looked at each other for a long moment. Then Owen said, "I'm sorry about your father's company. I'm sorry she used your grief against you." Nathan said, "How's your daughter?" Owen's face changed. "She's good. She's really good. She started kindergarten." Nathan nodded once. That was all. He told me about that exchange a week later over dinner. And when he finished, he said, "I don't hate her, Mom. I've been trying to figure out if that makes me weak." I set down my fork. "It makes you your father's son." He was quiet. Benny said, "She really had planned everything, hadn't she? Every detail." "Yes." "And you still caught it." "Margaret caught it," I said honestly. "I just acted on it." Nathan smiled slightly. "Dad always said the most important thing you can do is trust the people who've earned it." "He was right," I said. "He usually was." We ate dinner. My son and I in the house where he'd grown up, at the table where Robert had sat every evening for 30 years. Outside the window, the October sky was going gold and purple, the particular beauty of a day ending without drama, without revelation. Just the quiet, ordinary goodness of a meal and a conversation, and a person you love sitting across from you. I thought about the morning 4 months ago when I'd walked into a hotel parking lot in pearl gray and had my world rearranged. I thought about Emma's voice carrying across a silent room. I thought about the look on Nathan's face when he pressed his hand to his chest, watching someone he loved walk toward him before he knew. Some moments you carry with you, not as wounds, exactly, more like markers. This is when things changed. This is when you found out what you were made of. This is when the truth cost something, and you paid it anyway. Robert used to say that honesty was the only gift worth giving because it was the only one that couldn't be taken back. I hadn't always understood that. Standing at an altar, speaking into a silent room while my son looked at me with a face I couldn't read, I understood it completely. If this story moved something in you, hit subscribe and stay with us. Leave a comment below. Have you ever had to deliver a truth that cost you something to tell? I want to hear from you. And to whoever is listening right now, carrying something they're not sure whether to say, trust what you know. Trust the people who've earned it. And remember that one hard moment of truth is always, always better than a lifetime shaped by a lie. God bless you, and thank you for being here.